Today we are going to discuss about organisms, especially microorganisms. But before going to start the classification system of microorganisms, we need to know the history of organisms, whole organisms, how that classification system has been end up with this classification system of microorganisms. The first of the classification system is started by Carl Linnaeus in 1735. The system of classification proposed by Carl Linnaeus in 1735 is known as two kingdom system of classification, which is also known as two kingdom system of classification. And he has arranged all the plant species in his book Species Plantarum. Then the two kingdoms coming under the system classification of Carl Linnaeus are Animalia and Vegetabilia. Animalia and Vegetabilia. And all about his plant species and genus he has enlisted in his book Species Plantarum. And after the classification system, Ernest Haeckel has classified these all organisms into three categories. That is known as three kingdom classification. The first one is Protista and Animalia, and the last one is the Plantae. We will discuss about the difference between these two classification systems. Let us look into that. The Carl Linnaeus to only two kingdom classification, Animalia and Vegetabilia. But in the case of Ernest Haeckel, the three kingdom classification, he has included the one more category that is known as Protista. You can see Protista. Then Animalia, Plantae, and again Protista also has been introduced into the Haeckel system of classification. That has been proposed in 1866. And after these two system of classification, again we will discuss in the classification system of Schatten. The Schatten classification is known as two empire classification system. Here it is two empire classification system. The first one, the Carl Linnaeus one, is two kingdom. Do not mess up with these two categories. The Schatten in 97 has proposed two empire classification system. That includes Prokaryota and Eukaryota. Prokaryota and Eukaryota. That is the two empire system classification proposed by Schatten in 1937. And after these three scientists has proposed classification, again the Copeland has proposed the four kingdom classification system in 1956. The Copeland system of classification, it includes four kingdom classification. It includes Monera, Protocrista, not Protist. Here you just see the Protocrista. The name is Protocrista, Plantae, and Animalia. That are the before the Schatten's classification, two empire classification system. Ernest Haeckel is the Protista is here in Ernest Haeckel's classification. Here it is not the Protist, it is Protocrista. And the four kingdom of classification has been proposed by Copeland in 1956. And it includes Monera, Protocrista, Plantae, and Animalia. And after these all the classification systems, R.H. Whittaker has been proposed a new system of classification, and it is widely accepted one. And it is known as five kingdom classification. The system of five kingdom classification, who has proposed the five kingdom classification? R.H. Whittaker. R.H. Whittaker has been proposed five kingdom classification in 1969. And it includes Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. You can see before this all the classification system, you can see Protist over here in Ernest Haeckel's system of classification, and here also you can see the Protist. And Monera, you can see Copeland's classification. Monera is there, and the classification system of R.H. Whittaker also Monera is here. And what is the difference between this four kingdom and five kingdom classification? Here is Protocrista, here it is Protist. Animalia is also there. Fungi, the introduction of fungi is the important one. What is the difference between the Copeland and R.H. Whittaker classification or four kingdom and five kingdom classification? Here the introduction of the kingdom of fungi. It is a main important one. And these are the major history of classification of my organisms. Just after studying these kinds of things, this is the new one, and the scientist has introduced a particular classification system from all the considering the data of genomic data and other sequencing data and all other physiological characters and all other characters have included and classified microorganisms accordingly into cellular and acellular entities. This is a classification of microorganisms. This is the latest classification of microorganisms. The first one is cellular entities and the second one is acellular entities. If we hear the word microorganisms, we may think that it's virus or bacteria. But in the recent scenario, different types of all the organisms, several types of microorganisms are included in cellular and acellular ones. Just look into cellular one first. The first one is fungi. We all know about these funguses. Usually in our daily life, we use yeast. Yeast means then for fermentation food, in fermenting food industries like bread or other idli batter or dosa batter, usually use this yeast. And molds are, these are the examples of fungus. This is a plural of fungi means plural. Fungus is a single word, singular form. The fungi, it includes yeast and molds. And the second one is protists. Protists, what are the protists? We may tell that are protozoan protists or like that. These protists include actually protozoans are also there, algae and slime molds. These three different categories are coming under protists. What are protists? Let us look into protists. Protozoans. We may hear about protozoans. What are protozoans? We know the malarial parasite. Malarial parasite, that is also known as black water fever. That causative agent of malaria. It is coming under protozoans. And again algae. We know the algae from seaweeds. We know that are seen in marine environment. That protozoa, and also freshwater environment also we can see algae. Green algae, blue algae, red algae like that. And slime molds, it is also seen in water. And bacteria. Bacteria, let us discuss about the bacteria. We all know this shigellosis and plague. Plague means black death. Plague, the disease that is caused by Yersinia pestis. It has washed about 25 million people in Europe in 1300. That year it has washed out 25 million people from Europe. That is also known as black death. The death of plague caused by plague is known as Yersinia pestis is known as black death, and it is caused by bacteria. And bacteria, the E. coli, Escherichia coli, it is known as Escherichia coli. Commonly in water testing, in newspaper, news dailies, we can see the coliform bacteria. The number of coliform bacteria are very high in this water. So that water is not potable. It is not a drinking water. We cannot drink that water. This is contaminated with coliform bacteria. But that is caused by bacteria, E. coli. And the third one, Archaebacteria. This is actually Archaebacteria. Archaebacteria are the ancient ones. The first introduction of Archaebacteria in earth, or in evolutionary point of view, we can see this has appeared in earth 3.5 billion years ago. See, this one is 3.5 billion years ago. This Archaebacteria has started its journey. And methanogens, these are the microorganisms which we can see in the stomach of cows or cattle. These methanogens are coming under Archaebacteria. In our later classes, we will discuss about the peculiarity and the cell wall structure of bacteria and Archaebacteria. Here, we are not going to discuss much about Archaebacteria. You must remember about these methanogens are coming under Archaebacteria. Then these are all about these cellular entities. We are going to discuss about the acellular entities. What are the acellular entities over here under the classification system of microorganisms? The first one is virus. A couple of months back, we have already been discussed about these viruses in our news dailies. That are the infection of Nipah virus here near in Calicut district, and that are coming under this category of virus. These are protein and nucleic acid. You see, these viruses are intracellular obligate parasites. What does it mean by obligate parasites? It doesn't have a machinery to eat like other cellular and industrial bacteria and all. It will live only in a living cell, and it will utilize all the metabolic byproduct of living organisms. So it is obligate intracellular parasites. Only can live in a living cell. It contains a protein coat and nucleic acids. Nucleic acids means RNA, DNA. Like it contain a protein and nucleic acid. This virus classification system we have to discuss in other classes. This virus, the system of classification as virus, has been proposed by David Baltimore. That are 7 system of classification that we will discuss in other class. And the other one is viroids. What are viroids? Viroids are this, it only contains not the protein code, RNA, only contains ribonucleic acids. And the other ones are known as satellites. We usually hear the satellites in that ISRO used, but the case is entirely different. These satellites mean these are a kind of virus particles, and what is the difference from virus? Nucleic acid, often RNA is contained. It contains often RNA. And prions, we may hear about these prions. This mad cow disease is caused by proteins. Actually, prions are proteinaceous infectious particles that are known as prions. Proteinaceous infectious particles are known as prions. It contains only proteins. And we'll look into this microorganism. Just consider microorganism. The first classification system, the cellular ones, and here acellular ones. Here are the fungi. The yeast and molds are the examples of fungi. And protists, protozoa and protists, algae, slime molds are coming under protists. And again bacteria, E. coli, and we have already discussed about plague and all. And the archaea bacteria, these are the ancient ones that formed 3.5 billion years back, and methanogens are the example of archaea bacteria. And cellular ones, just keep it here, and the right side you can see acellular entities that coming in virus, protein and nucleic acid are components of viruses, and viroids contains only RNA, nucleic acid, RNA. And again the satellites, nucleic acid and often RNA it contains, and prions, that are the proteinaceous infectious particles.